Oh, you can't bring that in here. Excuse me? That. You know?
You get children that go in these places that cause more chaos, but that's okay. But taking a dog for some reason creates a lot of problems. And you do feel very upset because you think, why me? Why am I different to everybody else?
Man's best friend has many jobs that it could take up in this world. One of these is being a guide dog. You look at these images and what words come to mind? Cute, inspiring, and brave. Well, how about endangered, discriminated against, and segregated? I bet you didn't expect to hear those words used and were just as surprised as I was. However, they are, and this documentary is going to explain why, as it takes you on a journey through the life of a guide dog owner.
It feels like it's closing in overnight.
Stefan is one of the many people currently waiting for a guide dog. He's had 2 dogs in the past, Thomas and Grant. However, after Stefan's wife passed away, so did his dog Grant, and he decided to go it alone with just him and his cane. The normal tasks aren't as easy for Stefan, but he's come up with his own ways of overcoming the odds. For example, he can't just collect his medication, he has to identify each tablet and make a rip in the label to identify it in the future. However, there are certain things that he can't overcome on his own and needs a dog to help him with. It isn't going to happen for Stefan at the snap of a finger though, as he's going to have to face average waiting times of around 2 years. He does believe that he needs a little bit of time to mull it over, but he knows that he needs to make a change.
I'm an independent person. I want to get out there. I don't want to rely on Aunt Matilda because there is no Aunt Matilda. You know, I don't have family. I have one beautiful sister. She lives in Spain the majority of the time, and I want to be independent. I mean, getting from A to B, getting you know, out of the house to, well, the first thing is to do things more safely, far more safely, rather than relying on myself. You know, a white cane will find the object, but a guide dog will avoid the object. And that's the one thing that I hate, is walking into things.
Stefan has a very certain request for his eventual partner in crime, and that may well bump years onto his waiting time.
I only want a German Shepherd male because they are bigger dogs. I'm 6'2". I like the temperament and everything like that.
These large waiting times are because guide dogs have to undergo many processes to prepare for their prospective owners, and this is all paid for by Guide Dogs for the Blind. By the end of the dog's life, it will have cost the charity £56,000 per dog. In some parts of the country, this could buy you a 2-bed semi-detached house, 4 Mini Coopers, or an all-inclusive holiday in Ibiza for over a year. That's all funded by your donations, and the first step that these guide dogs have to take is with their puppy walker. I travelled to Felixstowe to meet Penny Parker, a guide dog puppy walker and the newest addition to her family. Meet Zuby, he's her 13th puppy so far and only 10 weeks old. Penny's job is to get Zuby used to life with simple commands and the use of a whistle. As you can see, Zuby is quite the investigative pup and loves nothing more than to stick his nose in, and he's making good progress so far.
Zuby's doing really, really well. He's already sleeping through the night the majority of the time. He's managed to master just about waiting for his whistle to be blown for his food. He's got down and he's got sit. Wait is proving to be a little bit challenging, especially if there's a biscuit on the floor. And he's walking on the lead. He's doing really well. He's getting out front and he's not too interested in sniffing things.
It's a tough role, as at the end of their time with Penny, the dogs have to go into their next part of training and leave her.
It's horrible. If there's going to be a downside to something, that's the one for this. I'm going to cry just as much this time as I have for the other 12.
This job is very close to Penny's heart after one of her previous pups, Umber, saved her goddaughter's life.
We were babysitting, the parents had gone off to a wedding. She got a bit of a cold, but none of us were alarmed by that. She went to bed in the spare room. And it was always funny if there were children in the house, he had to be near them. So he slept outside the bedroom door. And anybody that knew him knew he wasn't a very active dog. He much preferred being asleep and lazing about. And he went completely berserk in the middle of the night, barking, running up and down the landing, jumping on the beds. And when I got up, the baby had been sick. So I cleaned her all up, went to put her back to bed, and he wouldn't let me put her back to bed. He just kept pushing me towards the stairs. So we came downstairs with her, put the lights on properly, and she was a very strange colour. I called the parents because I didn't have the car seat, I didn't have a car. They came straight round and took her to hospital, and she had a febrile convulsion within minutes of being there and almost died. And I hadn't even heard her be sick. So if he hadn't been here, it doesn't bear thinking about what would have happened.
Now, there are problems that Zuby could face when he grows up. Guide dog attacks have become a problem in the UK and could be anything from a dog barking and putting off a working dog all the way up to a full-blown violent attack. Penny told me about the possible consequences if the guide dog owner is forced to let the dog escape.
It's the same fear for everybody. If you've let your dog go and you're near a main road, not only have they got the fear of is that dog being shredded, bitten, they've now got the fear of have that dog run into the road, has it been hit by a car, is it going to come back, has somebody got hold of it and taken it somewhere else. It's all fears that culminate in that they are now stranded. They now have lost their lifeline, they don't know where they are, they don't know how to get home, and they are in fear for what's happened to their dog.
In order to fully understand what the situation felt like, I came to Lincoln to meet Di Vaughan, a guide dog owner and someone that is all too familiar with being the victim of a guide dog attack. Di is currently with her fourth guide dog Bridie, who she has now been working with for 10 months. Di first applied for a guide dog in her early 30s, after slowly losing her vision to cataract from the age of 5 years old. Di has been the victim of 2 attacks since starting with her guide dogs, one of which was while she was out walking with her toddler in its pram.
The first time with me was, I suppose, quite scary because it was with my first dog, and I actually had my baby girl in a pushchair and I was towing the pushchair behind me with my right hand. So I really didn't have a hand free, and also, as well as the safety of me and my dog, I also had to think of the little girl in the pushchair as well. So that one was a little bit scary.
Despite both incidents being diffused very quickly, it could have had quite serious consequences.
These incidents shouldn't happen at all. You know, these are working dogs. You know, it puts us in danger and puts the dog in danger, obviously.
It's not just attacks that are causing guide dog owners problems either, as discrimination is common too. Guide Dogs for the Blind published a report in 2016 where they found that 42% of the 503 assistant dog owners interviewed have been refused entry to taxis. This has also been known to happen in shops and restaurants. Di has had experiences with both.
I've been refused access to a taxi on one occasion. That was particularly annoying because when obviously I took the issue further and the driver tried to say that although I had the harness with me, that he didn't know it was a guide dog. But at the same time, you know, I could hear the operator saying to him on his radio, "You can't refuse to take a guide dog."
Di isn't on her own either, as I found out when I visited Catherine Ball and her guide dog Moss.
Moss, as a working dog, is absolutely brilliant. He's very up for a challenge. The more that we do in a day, the better he likes it. He doesn't like mundane life. So he's very suited to me because no 2 days of ours are ever the same.
Catherine is the chairwoman of the Lincoln fundraising branch for Guide Dogs for the Blind, the #1 charity for guide dogs in the UK. And Moss is her third dog. Catherine has been out with Moss on a couple of occasions where they have been refused entry.
We asked if it would be okay if we went through to the restaurant, and the lady behind the bar said, "Oh, I don't know about that, I'll just have to go and ask the manager." Came back and said, "No, I'm sorry, it's not allowed." To which we said, I'm sorry, but actually you can't by law refuse us. So she said, well, I'm told by my manager that I'm not to let you in there. So we said, could you please go and explain that it's a guide dog, and the reason we don't want to sit out here in the bar is because there's nowhere to sit, 2, it's full of other dogs, which is very distracting for the guide dog. We are by law entitled to go and sit in the restaurant. So she went away, she came back and she said, no, I'm sorry, flatly refuses to let you in. So we said, fine, and we left. But it actually made me feel really upset on the way home.
Catherine, like Di, said that it made her feel like a second-rate citizen and alienated. The worst thing about these problems for the guide dog owners is that they feel helpless.
No, and there's often nothing you can do about it at the time, and you're just left feeling really upset and angry, and you want there to be justice, really. So hopefully one day everybody will be allowed to go exactly where they want and you won't have these problems. But no, there's still a lot of problems now. But it's something guide dogs are aware of and are constantly striving to help. Even things like having the A boards on streets. That's a campaign to get rid of those, or at least, have them all in a line so that if you find your way down the street, you're not weaving in and out of all these A boards and street furniture and all these things that people say, well, it's my business, I'm trying to advertise my business. Well, yeah, that's fine, but don't create problems and obstacles for people who are trying to walk up and down the street, so ongoing issues.
Paul Bush campaigns against these issues and works for Guide Dogs for the Blind in their Hull Mobility Centre. Paul was able to tell me more about both attacks and discrimination.
Dog attacks are on the increase, unfortunately, across the board, but towards guide dogs it is becoming a national issue. Over 10 dog attacks a month.
He also shared some interesting information regarding the impacts that these attacks and acts of discrimination have had on guide dog owners.
The impact is huge, and we've had it where we've had guide dog owners that don't actually want to go back out because of issues of having a refusal.
Paul told me that the biggest solution is just raising awareness of the legislation concerning these guide dogs.
It's all about awareness, it's all about education. I'd say 9 out of the 10 of the access refusals that I've personally dealt with on a personal level and professionally is once we've actually had discussions with the service provider, they've actually realised they're wrong, they've realised that they've not acted accordingly, and they've welcomed the person back. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but the impact of actually being with friends, families or loved ones when you're actually refused entry is really embarrassing.
These are all issues that Stefan wouldn't want to let affect his decision about getting a guide dog, but they undoubtedly will. His experiences of discrimination with his previous guide dogs are still fresh in his mind.
We were in America, and cab, I'd be at a hotel, and the cab driver would see the guide dog and pull straight by. He would pull up. There would be me and a friend. You'd have a Labrador. I'd have my German Shepherd, and her cab driver said, "Fine." Mine said, "No, I'm not taking that. He's not a proper guide dog. I'll have to ring the office." And me being me, I just said, he said, "Yeah, I have to take you." And I said, "Well, do you know what? I don't want you because you've insulted me." And it was like, you asked the question. Did it happen a lot? Probably not, but when it did, it just reminded me of the time it happened before, and it was just like, again.
These are working dogs, assistance dogs, animals that are dedicating their lives to help the blind. Yet there is still one question that owners are having to ask.
I think, why me? Why am I different to everybody else?
So, it makes you feel a little bit second rate, really.
But yeah, you do. You feel almost as if you're a leper.
It made me feel kind of more disabled than I actually am. Because, at the end of the day, I'm blind, but I'm Stefan first.